Secretary Duncan, thank you. Quite a few questions. Let me just try to go through several of them. One is you and I have spoken before about the waiver and the issue with No Child Left Behind. It is the importance to replace No Child Left Behind because my state of Oklahoma has obviously dealt with this extensively with your department, but every state has had to deal with the waiver process. And I appreciate your cooperation in trying to get a complete replacement of this, and so you do not have to deal with the constant waiver battles back and forth. I also appreciate some of the comments that Senator Alexander made about the FAFSA. For any person who is a junior or senior in high school and they get that form, the very first question is, why are they asking all these questions? What does it matter? And why is the federal government collecting this amount of information on my particular student? Any work that can be done to simplify that form, I think, is extremely important for multiple reasons. But if we discourage people from engaging in that process by the sheer length of the form, we're doing them a great disservice. So I would encourage that. I do want to spend a little more time on what Senator Blunt was talking about with the college rating system. And I want to just dig in a little bit to that as well. In your budget, is there a detail of the cost to develop, implement, and sustain the college rating program that is currently going through right now, including some sort of estimate of legal costs? Obviously, this is going to be challenged tremendously, and I would assume your department is aware of that. Is there an estimate in your budget somewhere that I'm missing of the cost of developing, sustaining this ratings program?
So let me just back up quickly on the FAFSA. Couldn't agree more. I will just say we reduced about a third of the questions early on in the administration. Clearly, we've got some more work to do. We feel really proud about that. We have average completion times down to under half an hour. So we've made some progress, but long way to go. And again, look forward to partnering with you and others.
Yeah, completion time versus gathering all the forms required to actually do the completion is a different thing, because there's quite a bit they have to be able to gather to pull that together. But that's a different issue.
Yeah, no, we got some work to do, and look forward to doing it with you. And to your point, just to state the obvious, completing that form unlocks $150 billion in grants and loans each year. If you don't fill that form out, you are locked out. And so that cannot be a barrier, and you're exactly right. In too many places, it still is a barrier and impediment to those resources, so we have to do that. Again, just to repeat, on the college rating system, we're still developing this. Happy to sit down with the chairman.
Is that something that's in the budget currently, that there's a section there, or can you tell us?
There's not a huge section. This is not a high-cost item. This is us sort of thinking it through. I'm much less worried about it than you are, and we can again talk through the concerns or whatever. This would be a modest effort to try and get more information and more transparency.
Is there a spot that y'all are looking at saying, here's where the statutory authority comes from to do it, based on either previous budget statements coming from this committee saying, hey, we're going to allocate some funds and time and FTEs to be able to help prepare a rating system, or from the previous 1979 document saying this is within the purview of the Department of Education to be able to do it?
I think in appropriate role of federal government or state government, local government, it should be around transparency. And I think this is a massive play around transparency. Sure. And
which has traditionally been the state responsibility that oversees these state colleges or private entities.
Again, this is not overseen. You still have that, but as you know, people aren't just picking colleges in their state or in their locality. There's a national, and just if we can get more information, again, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with young people and their parents where they just don't have good information.
Sure, I understand that. I have high school age kids myself as well, and so our family has.
So you're living this.
I am, and so very aware of that. I would just ask that you would submit to the committee any kind of budget work that's already been done to try to build towards this, the dollars, FTEs, that you've set aside to start researching and preparing this rating system. Obviously, you've spent some time going through it, and then any estimates that you have as you start to guess out the cost of some of the litigation in the future, that would help us in decision-making process in the days ahead as we start allocating funds. I need to shift subjects to you as well. As we're talking about a replacement for No Child Left Behind, which again, I completely encourage and glad to participate in that process. One of the areas that has come up in No Child Left Behind is that children in homeless families have to be mainstreamed into schools. If they're segregated, they're not eligible for any federal funding in that school. So a school like Positive Tomorrows in Oklahoma that targets helping homeless kids that have a very difficult time engaging in mainstream schools, public schools, because of their spotty attendance and everything else, have no access to those funds. Is that something that we can work together to try to resolve, that we have an ability for homeless children to have that specific population, to at least schools that are targeted towards reaching them aren't excluded?
It's a great question. I'm not familiar with a school in your state, so I'd like to learn more. There's a school in San Diego, San Diego County, that I'm more aware of that seems to have done some pretty remarkable work. And it's a complicated issue. You never want to stigmatize kids. You never want to, separate them. But are there tremendous additional challenges that some schools are doing a great job of helping to meet? And so I'd love to have a further conversation, learn more. I did not know about that.
There is a tremendous asset to being able to help those students, because there are some very unique environments there. And if I could ask one more question just for the record as well. Is that all right? The loan servicing issue, there have been some changes on that, where 25% now of loan servicers will be not-for-profit, and it's capped at that amount. I'd be interested in just getting some background on why the 25% number was capped for not-for-profits. Why not just have the open competition, allow those that are quality servicers? I know I'm out of time on that, but if I could get that submitted for the record, that'd be helpful, because my hope is it doesn't set the not-for-profits up for failure by capping the amount for loan servicing for the multiple companies that are doing it.
Just very quickly, going forward, I think in September, we're looking at performance, and based upon performance, we'll be doing reallocations.
Okay, thank you.
Are you all clear on the question he asked about money being spent on this rating system? You're going to submit the information in response to that question. Money spent, money you anticipate spending.
Yeah, there's no big, yes, happy to provide it. Again,
Yeah, and
we've
just
not,
FTEs.
there's no,
FTEs.
there's no, this is just part of what folks are doing, so there's no big budget, there's no big whatever, but happy to try.
Yeah, I just assume as you're thinking it through, you're committing some FTEs to it, and you're thinking it through, and you're also having to look out what's going to be the court costs that are possible on this, because again, we've got to plan on funding. If that's going to be a funding issue in the days ahead, dealing with higher ed and court costs on it, we need to know.